We'll call the meeting to order for the morning. And the first order of business is approval of our agenda for the day.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Citizens to be heard. Any citizens that would like to be heard this morning? Seeing none, we'll move on. Approve payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion to approve and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And the first item is approval of short-term agreements, public health. Kathy McKay. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I have 4 short-term agreements. We've done this in the past as well with our statewide health improvement project, so it isn't anything new, having some short-term agreements. But I've listed the descriptors on each of those agreements, and they're with 4 individuals that we already work with and know. And again, it's just to provide the short-term work that we need with the grants to accomplish those grant projects. So, and the agreements are the same template that we've used in the past that Jenny has approved.
Do we need to do these one at a time, or?
We could, or we could just approve all 4 of
Probably
them.
do all 4 of them, I think.
Mr. Is that what you want?
Yes.
Okay. I'd move approval of the request for.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'm not going to make it that easy on her this morning, are we?
That's great.
Well, we could have done them one at a time and threatened to.
Mr. Chair,
Brian?
since we do have a couple minutes, it might be okay just to touch on each agreement for Jenny's sake, just to
Yeah.
help her understand all
Sure,
of the
that's a good
different
idea,
contracts
Brian,
that they do.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Berg.
I really appreciate it, Brian.
Maybe you don't.
No, it's great.
He likes long meetings.
Well, just a 30 seconds.
Sure. We have, the agreements are in our health promotion area, and they're work that we currently are doing. The first one is with an individual that is our Green Corps person, and he's going to take on some of the data entry for our tobacco prevention work. We have a grant with that, and we did most recently lost our tobacco prevention person. So he will get us through some of that data work in that project. The second one is actually an agreement with Keely, who was our tobacco prevention person, and she has extra time to provide the quarterly report and some of the grant strategies for our community partners. That is with our Blue Cross Blue Shield grant. And so she will help us get through the process until we get a new person on board. There's a lot of work in that tobacco prevention area and a lot of strategies with partners. So she's going to work with us on that for technical assistance. The other individual is working with the food systems, our Cass Clay Food System Initiative, and that is another health promotion area that we're working on with Fargo Cass. So those are strategies to work with just to have more effective means to provide healthy options in our local area. And the same with the 4th agreement is the same thing. That person is a dietitian, and it's again overseeing the Cass Clay food systems and the documentation we have with the partners in our community that we work with. All of those are under our health promotion area and fit within our statewide health improvement project overall. Does that, you have any questions about that?
Well, now I do have a question. Now that you go through it, Mr. Berg.
Thanks, Mr. Byrd.
So, why do we have to have an agreement with Keely?
She's no longer an employee with
Oh,
us.
okay.
She moved to take another job in the community.
Okay, I was not aware of that. So
Oh,
that's-
okay.
I just
Sorry
thought it was
about
strange
that.
that we would be
Yeah.
having an agreement with the.
She resigned from our the position here into
Okay.
another position in the
Okay.
community, so.
Okay, all right.
Good question on the food system. Now, we got, MetroCog's got a food system, Partnership for Health has a food system.
Well, this is working with all of those groups. So Clay County Public Health works with the Cass Clay Food Initiative, which is also MetroCog and Dakota Medical Foundation, and all of us work as a partner together. So it's one big umbrella of the Cass Clay Food System Initiative. Does that answer your question?
Well, I was just wondering how many are running this food system. I mean, how many different departments are in it, you know? Because I know MetroCog, I'm on food thing there, Extension, University of Minnesota Extension, they get a food. They could be a partner, I guess, with MetroCog, I guess, so, yeah.
Yeah, we're all partners in working across the borders with this system.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kathy? On our motion, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any other further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks,
Yeah,
Kathy.
thank you.
Approval of electronics recycling contract. Shannon Thompson. Morning, Shannon.
I'm just coming back to you. I had been here with the RFP a couple weeks ago. We did put out to several individuals, and then we posted in the county newspaper and on the website. We surveyed our surrounding counties, got feedback from them as far as the recyclers that they use, and made sure that we got the RFP out to those companies also. We received 3 proposals back from the proposal that is the state contract from MPC. Had a freight charge of $439 per pickup, as well as $1,127 for a mobilization charge per pickup. Their recycling fee was only $10 a pound, but with those pickup and transportation fees, they were the most expensive proposal. We also received a proposal from TKI that had a $675 pickup fee, and recycling services would be 25 cents a pound. Neither of those am I recommending. I'm recommending that we stay with TRC Company. We have no freight or pickup charges on this contract. Recycling fee is 25 cents a pound if we do what we're doing now, which is doing straight trucks, so it's a 12 pallet pickup. If we can collect and work our system around a little bit, get the skid steers with the forks available for pickup, we can do semi quantities, and in the semi-load quantities, it would be 15 cents a pound. And they're also then, if we sort it just into 3 categories, TVs and computer monitors, we would pay the 15 cents a pound on, and all other electronics would be shipped for free and would be at no cost to us. And that's the contract that I'm recommending.
Questions for Shannon?
Are those things doable to make those changes?
We can, yep. The only thing would be we may have to occasionally send a straight truck out of the landfill, but we should be able between the sites to have a semi-load quantity with the skid steers now that we've got the skid steer training at 11 sites.
What kind of an increase is this to us compared to what we?
It's going to be hard to tell because of the no fee on the other electronics.
Okay.
I'm figuring about 2 pallets a load, maybe on a semi-load 3, would be at no cost, and then it's going up 5 cents a pound. So I'm not sure yet what the impact is going to be.
Jenny?
Shannon, what kind of weight are we talking about? Are we
Last year,
averaging?
we shipped about 230,000 pounds.
Any other questions for Shannon?
I recommend approval of TRC.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion on this matter? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Board of Appeal and Equalization Schedule. Nancy. Morning, Nancy.
What I'm basically looking for is a motion to approve our date that we're scheduled for the County Board of Equalization. Attached here is our schedule. It shows a very small majority of our townships and cities that actually hold their own local Board of Appeals, where it shows the majority actually go through the open book and transfer those powers basically to the county. But the date that we've established for County Board of Appeal and Equalization is Tuesday, June 16th at 6:30.
Okay, any questions for Nancy on that? What are the board's wishes?
I'd move we set the date for the County Board of Appeal and Equalization for Tuesday at 6:30 on the 16th of June.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thanks, Nancy.
Yep. Now, excuse me, now we can do a little department update if you'd like.
Please.
I did send out some information to you. I don't know if you'd like me just to kind of hit the high points of each part, if that would be okay. It's basically, our general duties in our department are to value and classify properties so that each taxpayer is paying no more or no less than their fair share of the tax levy. And we do that through classification as well as valuation. We are authorized to go into structures and buildings to do that type of work, and taxpayers do also have the right to refuse that, either written or verbally. But if they do refuse that, then there really is no appeal action that they can take at local boards and that type of thing until we actually do view the structures and the property. Our current staffing level in our department, we have 5 individuals, and each one of us has a license of some sort for assessment work. With those licenses also comes a 4-year review, and during that time, we need to have anywhere from 40 to 50 hours of continuing ed. And as of July 1st, 2019, anyone that does do the assessment work will have to have a license of a accredited Minnesota assessor. So we have staff that are working towards that to get that. Our process for doing basically mass appraisal and building permits, we have a quintile plan that we've developed and gotten approval through the Department of Revenue. And every year then we do a quintile, which is 1/5 of the county. We send out postcards to any improved parcels, residential and agricultural, and we hope for people to schedule appointments to make better use of our time. We wait a little while after those postcards are sent, and then we send staff in those jurisdictions to do basically door-to-door and work in through and around the appointments. We also handle building permits kind of in that same manner, especially if they're new home construction. We strive to be able to do interior work because we feel we can do a better job than just viewing from the exterior. There's some things that don't need to have interiors, like if they're putting a deck on or new garage, some of those simpler things, or grain bins. Those things can be viewed from the exterior and measured up, or a phone call to the property owner as well. As far as apartment and commercial, we handle those slightly different. When they are part of the quintile plan, we do like to be able to get into them as well. We do a lot of work with cities that offer blueprints and that type of thing to get better information and that, but we do like to do interior inspections as much as we can. The next step basically is the work that we do, and it's basically graded by the Department of Revenue. And it's all based on ratios that come through, based on sales activity. We recently received our sales information, actually the latter part of December, and that's indicating as far as a countywide ratios, it shows different apartments, commercial or seasonal rec and residential and agricultural basically. And these are cumulative as far as all sales that have taken place in the county. These also get broken down into jurisdictions if they have more than 6 sales. And we need to then look at those jurisdictions and make sure that we fall within that range of 90 to 105. As you can see, in most of our areas county-wide, we're in good condition. There's probably some adjustments that will be made to different property types. Our commercial is one, as you can see that it's out of that acceptable range that's being worked on. We actually did a little work also on the apartments to pull it in a little tighter. And the next thing will be to look at now will be our agricultural land. We had roughly 38 good qualified agricultural sales this year. And we chart them throughout the county, and we have several different agricultural zones. And based on the activity that will take place in those zones will indicate if we need to increase or lower values. But looking at our ratio, we're right where we'd like to be at that 97%, but there's always areas where you can clean up and improve the assessment as well. The appeal process to our taxpayers basically does start with if their jurisdiction has the local board of appeal option. As you can see, we only have a small handful of our cities and towns that do that, townships that do that, but that's their first step if that's offered to them. They need to supply good, solid information to us to indicate if we are misvalued or misclassifying property. The townships themselves have the right then to make those changes if they have the local board of appeal option. The open book is basically where they come to the county with their concerns, and we can hopefully address them before they even get to your county board of equalization and deal with them. Those are their two basic steps, and of course their third appeal is always through tax court. So if they're concerned about the valuation or classification for the 2015 assessment, they have until April 30th of 2016 to file in tax court. Our last item is the State Board of Equalization, and that's basically telling if the counties have done the work that they need to do. That's where we can either receive increases or decreases on different types of property classes, or if there's other statistical information that isn't meeting the guidelines that they've established, things that we need to work on. Other things that we do, of course, in our department too, we have a lot of ongoing processes and applications and things like that. One of the big ones, of course, is homestead, be it relative or regular homestead, and our special ag. For pay 15, the ag first tier, of course, is at the $1.9 million worth of value, and they've already established now the pay 16 rate, which is $2,140,000 of value. Other items that we take care of are the Veterans Exclusion Program, this old house plat law, special state assessed properties like the utilities and railroads and such. All of that is done at the state level, but we do maintain that. And all of our abstract information is prepared out of our department. And the next big thing that will come will be the revaluation of all exempt property in the county, and that's for the 2016. That's a real brief overview.
Good overview. Any questions? Kenny?
I know in December, I've been hearing from some farmers just, how ag land is being taxed right now. Are you seeing any trends with that pendulum swinging to weigh a little less heavily on ag, or are we not seeing it yet?
With the way our ratio looks, exactly where I'd like it to be, looking at that right now, I'd say no, there maybe isn't going to be a lot of change downward in valuations, because we do mass appraisal. We have to look at the whole pool, and we're not lucky enough to have 6 sales in each jurisdiction.
Right.
So we try to do the best with the data that we have. And right now, if anything, it would be very slight reduction in agriculture value.
But I think, going to Jenny's question, though, I think that ag value is leveling off in terms of the rate of increase.
It is.
It's not the peak.
Right.
Right,
Yeah,
yes.
so at this point, it'll probably be here, and again, it's all related to the commodity prices, and what they get for product, and as that goes down, so should the land.
Another thing too, our residential property countywide, Every year, there's a sales adjustment or a time adjustment that's done, and for Clay County, other than the city of Moorhead, we are right under 6%. So that means that the sales that took place during our last study period will be adjusted by an annual increase of 6%. So we'll be seeing definitely increases in residential value. So that pool will
That-
raise.
Right.
So if the
That's
ag
low, that should
stays,
lower the other one.
yeah, then there might be a
In terms of-
slight shift.
In terms of tax dollars collected,
Right.
the shift in tax dollars.
Yes.
A question on the medium ratio, like a commercial and stuff, where we're 73/98. If we know we're not up at the median, why don't we raise that, or what?
What I did, excuse me, of those 10 sales that we had in the county, none of them, of course, totaled 6 in a particular jurisdiction, so I looked at it as a county-wide. I pulled out some of the sales that I thought were low, that I thought that there's an increasing market for. Like an example is mini storage. We had a sale this year, we had a sale last year, and it indicated we were low. So I did do some adjustments on mini storage in the commercial. So I'm hoping to have raised that ratio based on that small sample size to be within that 90 to 105. So I have raised some commercial values for the 15 assessment.
Okay, any other questions for Nancy?
Mr. Chair?
Brian?
And Nancy, you had sent some information that I forwarded to the commissioners a while back, and it showed that the percentage of who was paying the tax in the county, 10 years ago, it was approximately 60% on the residential, I should say, 20% on the ag land, and then about 20% commercial, I believe it was. And now, 10 years later, it's been quite a shift, and the ag land is paying very close, about 38% or close to that 40% of the taxes the residential is paying. Now, they're dropped from 60% down to around 42% or very close to that 40%, and commercial has stayed the same, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so there's really been a shift from the residential to the ag land. Everybody knows that, but when you see it on paper and you see that swing, you can understand why ag land is so controversial as far as the value and why there's questions about that. So that was good information. It really helped.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.
Anything else? Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda, update planning and zoning regulations. Tim Magnuson, thank you. Good morning, Chair.
Morning, Tim.
Morning, Tim. I'm not exactly sure what prompted this discussion. I think I know part of it. And Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that we've had an issue recently with a structure in the county. It was a tax forfeit structure. It went up for sale a couple of times, never got sold. The county really should have, in hindsight, the county really should have gone into the building and done some inspecting work at the time, because the building foundation was failing, and it ultimately got sold. It got sold, and we thought the property owner there, or the person that bought it, said that he was going to tear it down and he was going to start new, which was fine with us. He actually got a variance to be able to build it back where it was. And now he sold it again. And it appears that there's a party that has acquired it that's rebuilding it from the inside out, even though the building itself is probably not structurally sound. I know that Frank has had a concern with this building that sits east of Dilworth, and there really isn't anything that we can do about it. We had talked with the health department and the sheriff's department about welfare. We'd heard that there was a young child that lived in the building, and we were concerned with that. They actually did a welfare check, found that the electricity was on, there was heat in the building. So again, beyond that point, there isn't anything that we can do through the public health nuisance or the planning and zoning regulations. So That's, I know that that's been an issue lately, and I know that we've talked about this years back, but the only way that we could have an individual in place who could do inspections and decide to condemn a building would be if we administered any kind of building codes for it. We don't, so we don't have that opportunity. And I don't know if that discussion has been brought up again or exactly what the story is. I have information here if you're interested in looking at what's entailed with that. We went through that process back in 2005, 2006. Got about as close as we could have gotten and decided not to do that. I don't know if there's an interest from the board at this time to do anything more in that regard, so.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for Tim?
No, not a question, just a comment. I mean, I appreciate you guys going out there checking this thing out for my concerns, you know, the work concerns, you know. And I guess it just brought up a question, you know, as far as when we sell a building. I mean, at that time, some of our septic tank regulations weren't in place, but they are now. And, you know, we couldn't have sold that building with the condition of that place, but we did. You know, and we sold it to a buyer. The same thing, any buyer out there, whether it's the county selling it or another buyer, they can sell those buildings without any type of inspections right now.
Right. You know, we had talked about that when there's a sale of property, the county has a requirement that a septic certification be done. That does not apply to tax forfeit properties. The state waives anything like that for the properties that are tax forfeit. So there's not a requirement when the auditor does that those types of things occur. What the county does need to do is when we've got tax forfeit property, we need to take a much closer look at it to see if it's even worth selling. The best thing that could have happened with that particular property is the county had it demolished and probably split the property down the middle and sold it to the two parties on either side. Would have been a better thing to do. It would have cost us a little bit of money, but at least it would have cleared up an issue that isn't going to be cleared up in the near future.
So even, no matter what this guy does to the house, no one's going to inspect it?
No one at the county.
No, okay. And
If he does something with the septic system, which he probably will need to do, then that will fall to Bruce or Kent over in Environmental Health.
Okay, what is our procedure now when if he does fix it up and sells it, the septic tank is not up to code? Do we check on property that is sold whether there's a septic tank certification?
We do. You know, there's a requirement upon sale of a property or upon transfer of a property that the septic system be certified by the county.
But if they don't apply for it, we don't do it. I mean.
Well, if they don't apply for it, we don't do it, but the assessors catch it.
Okay,
And then
very good.
Those properties are sent back
Okay,
to
good.
Bruce, and he responds back to them for
All right.
getting it done after the fact. In terms of work that's done on property, and this goes back to discussions from back when we were looking at this before, we've always said, encouraged to make sure everybody hires licensed contractors to do this work. For one thing, they're supposed to use licensed contractors to do the work, and if the licensed contractors do the work, they're going to abide by the state building code, correct? We hope.
If they want.
Yeah, they should if they want to keep their license. Yeah, it's a matter of jeopardizing their license.
Right.
If they do something that's not in compliance with the code.
So going back to years ago when we were reviewing this, I know that was one of the big issues, is that the big thing that we can suggest to our property owners in Clay County is when they're going to do work on their properties is to make sure that they contract with licensed contractors. Then they're going to be assured that at least things are being done to the state guidelines.
you know, and so that's pretty significant there, so.
There is a requirement statewide in Minnesota that any construction needs to be in accordance with the Minnesota State Building Code. Whether you have a licensed contractor doing it, you have a sub, you're a general and you've got a sub doing it, or you're doing it yourself. It all has to be done or is supposed to be done to the Minnesota State Building Code.
I guess that's what I'm concerned, if you do it yourself, the last one you mentioned, or if you do it yourself.
Even if you do it yourself, you're still required to meet state building codes.
But there's no inspection done on it, so.
No.
So.
You know, and
it's-
that's been the whole issue, is that you can tell anybody that.
But when
they-
property is transferred, you can have an inspection done. A lot of times that is done. People hire an inspector to,
That's pretty common nowadays.
Yes.
Right, yeah, home inspection is very common.
Yeah.
The problem is that home inspection only sees what you can see.
right.
You know, with the building codes, you start at the bottom, you know, the footings are inspected, the foundation is inspected, the framing's inspected, the electrical, the plumbing, before all that sheet rock or whatever gets put over the top of it.
Right.
A home inspector, you know, he inspects what he can see.
Jenny?
Can I see the information that you brought? Did you say you, I mean,
You got this one, right?
I didn't know.
Well, you didn't get what?
I didn't get
Vicky
that.
put out?
I don't have that one.
That's the
Okay.
history of
Oh,
what we,
great, yeah, I just didn't have this one.
you can have that.
Thank you.
What I'll do is I'll just pass out something that I ran off from the Department of Labor and Industry that pretty much goes through the whole process as far as a building code is concerned.
Mr. Chair, you know, I was a little surprised at what I heard today regarding the tax forfeited properties, and I don't know that I think the action that we did several years ago on the building code is satisfactory to me, but I don't know that we spent a whole lot of time at that time talking about the differences between tax forfeited property. And it would seem to me that we might have some abilities to put some sort of a policy in place prior to that going up for sale, that be reviewed. You know, and Tim, I'm sure you could come back and recommend something to us to avoid any bad things happening. Because if there's problems with tax forfeited property, that we're the ones given the okay to put it back on the market, and if we're giving the okay to put it back on the market, we should give some sort of assurance that that it's worthy of being sold to somebody for their use, for private use.
Yeah, I think the way the state of Minnesota looks at it is the way many property owners look at selling property. I'm going to sell this as is, with all its defects that may be there, whatever.
Like a used car.
You buy it, you know, knowing that full well that I make no guarantees on the property. But I think in situations where you've got a structure that, unless it goes through a major rehabilitation, really isn't fit to live in, that we need to give some more consideration to.
Well, I think you
How they
have
should be
I think
developed.
you have two options, or at least you can list the defaults, and if it's not livable, we should say so.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we should say so in our policy that says, no, sure, you can go out and you can buy this, but, you know, it's not going to meet our criteria. It's not publicly safe to live in. We should be able to come up with something like that, I would think. You know, we do some things when, in the past, when home movers, when we moved out a lot of homes, like in Oakport and down South Crestwood there, you know, by the time they move some of those homes, you know, damages can occur, but there is still an inspections standpoint of where they went to and what foundations they were set on.
Yeah.
So it's, but this tax forfeited one, that one is one that's enlightening to me. I think I'd like to see us look at doing something to protect the county as the one who ultimately is selling that.
Yeah, like I said, you know, that one I think went up for for auction a couple of times, or up on a tax forfeit sale a couple of times, and never got purchased, and then somebody, it was actually a contractor out of Glendon who saw it, and came into the auditor's office, made an offer, and wound up acquiring it.
It may be a good first step to prevent an issue like this, you know, that down
So
the
everybody
line.
in agreement, we'll have Tim bring back something on the
Yeah.
tax forfeited properties for us?
Yeah, I'll work with Bruce, because, you know, there's a number of issues that
Yeah.
really need to be looked at if we're going to, especially if it's a house and we're gonna sell it as a house.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Well, I know I brought up, you know, as far as having building inspections and or building inspector, you know, because of this, I mean, I was concerned with some of the stuff going on, you know, but, and I also read what happened back in 2006 when you had a hearing or whatever you want to call it there at that time, you know. And I feel like if the citizens of the county are concerned about this, they're going to have to come forward, you know, because they're the ones buying these houses, you know. I mean, I'll put it out there, you know, we haven't got an inspector, and it's buyer beware, I guess, you know, and it's just, if you want some different standards, I got to hear from them, you know, and I just, until that, you know, right now I heard from one citizen, you know, and it's just, or two
And living through,
citizens, I mean, so.
Frank, living through that last kind of hearing that we had there too, what I got out of the most rural people was that they didn't like us expanding that whole process. It's just that rural character of them, and they want to be able to go out and do their thing in their
And I just
rural
attended,
areas, you know.
and I just attended a meeting in Hawley on Tuesday night, I think it was. It's the same thing I heard there, you know. They don't have building codes in Hawley, or a building inspector, and that's what I heard, you know, we don't want them, you know.
Even within the city?
Even within the city. Because if you adopt that code, you don't just adopt certain things, you gotta adopt the whole thing.
You got to take everything with it.
And that's what they're concerned about, you know.
Yeah.
It's this-
And we had the
if you
same-
put in water heaters, if you place a window,
Yep.
you gotta go get a permit for all of that, you know. That's what they're concerned about.
Yep.
I think they would like them for the buildings, but it's not, you can't just take certain things.
Yep, that was exactly what it was, is we ended up having to go get a building permit to put in a water heater, or one new window you'd have to, according to the real rules, you'd have to.
Yeah, if you change the header and stuff like that, but I mean, I can understand, like I say, if people want it, come to us,
Yeah.
let us know.
And Holly was actually very interested back in 2005, 2006, when the county was talking about it, because had the county adopted, the city would have adopted. Their intent was, if the county adopts and hires somebody to do it, we'll adopt it, we'll contract with that same party, and we'll put codes in place, so. And we've, you know, the city of Moorhead is right now in transition. Their building official just retired, and they've got a new one. Once they negotiate a salary, I guess he's going to take the job. But, you know, it's Moorhead, Dilworth, Glendon, Sabin, and Barnesville are the only communities that have adopted the code, so.
No, thanks for your work into this, and
Yep,
I'll
I'll
say-
sit down with Bruce and Kent, and
Yeah.
we'll put something together, you know, at least a nominal inspection process of tax forfeit properties.
Yes.
And you maybe have the county attorney's office
Yeah.
involved in that too, so.
Yeah, we'll get Jenny involved in that too, so.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, next on the agenda, departmental update, county recorder Diane Streifel. Morning, Diane.
Morning, Diane.
Good morning, Commissioner. Okay, I was gonna say,
Thank you. I'm Diane Streifel, I'm the county recorder. I was appointed in March, and now I'm officially appointed until the 6 months is up. No, no, I hope not. Okay, our office is physically located at the south end of the second floor of the courthouse. We have 2 counters. We have real estate on one side, and we have vitals on the other side. That doesn't mean that the customers can't go to the different counters. Our mission statement is to promptly record, file, and preserve documents accurately in an efficient, responsible, and professional manner for posterity and legal purposes. That means as we are the custodian of all legal records pertaining to real estate, birth, death, marriage, marriage credentials, notary public registration. That's for all the people in Clay County, and we are a satellite of the state of Minnesota when it comes to the vital records for birth certificates and death certificates. I'll first talk about the real estate documents. They are recorded every business day. Documents means deeds, mortgages, satisfactions, what most people are familiar with. We have about 200 document types that we do record. All of the documents presented for recording, we must check them for recordability. And when you were just talking, Tim, about the sewer regulations, if there's a transfer of a deed, we don't control that, but there has to be a statement about the well certificate. Whether there is no well, whether it's the same well, and if there is a change, a lot of times in the rural, they have to submit a well certificate, and that's an additional fee that they have to pay. So there is some mandate that we can kind of curb.
And that's before you can
right, before we can record
recording.
it. And some of the other recordabilities is it has to be notarized properly and some
Is
stuff
that the
like
septic tank ordinance also?
That's, no, unfortunately, that is not. And I think we had a discussion last year about that, about the people that buy rural property. That's kind of inspected after it's recorded. And I think sometimes if the realtors can get involved and can kind of, that can be part of the purchase agreement, is that the septic has to be recorded for, not recorded, but has to be checked.
Yeah, we went through that.
Yeah,
We went
last
through
year we
that
checked.
a couple of years ago. I know.
Yeah.
Because we brought in several realtors too, talking about it.
Right.
And it was, that's something where it,
And I don't think it's mandated yet by the state of Minnesota, like the well certificate is, that it has to appear on the document.
I thought we did a county ordinance, though, that septic, or didn't we pass that?
we'd have to go back and ask
Yeah.
Tim.
It was
again.
back, Greg, I know Greg Anderson
Yeah,
was
Greg
here.
Anderson
Possibly,
was
but it
involved with
doesn't
it.
have to be recorded, I don't believe.
Okay, very good. I was just.
But I think it was put into the home sale process
Yes.
with the realtors where, because like I said, sometimes it was after the fact that these things were checked. And I think there's something in the process now, there's a checkoff list of things during the buy-sell, because you're right, they wanted,
Right.
it should have been put in as part of the purchase agreement part right up front, that an inspection would be done on the septic system.
And when it comes to the deeds and mortgages, we work closely with the auditor treasurer because they actually do the transfers. Once we get them back, then we do the recording of the documents. Our documents we accept at the present time are paper documents and documents by e-recording. And by e-recording, it's not anybody can can email us a document or anything. We have trusted submitters that have to sign contracts with our software company, and the documents are submitted electronically, which is really nice. We have about 30% of our documents submitted electronically right now. It saves a lot for the staff, because then we get them, we see the image right away, we forward them to the auditor's office, the transferring ones if we have to, and within minutes, after we put our acceptance for the stamp, the public can see the image of the document. Whereas with the paper documents, it takes about a day or two for the images to go out. And with our software vendor that we have another program that not real estate agents, but abstractors purchases, it's a subscription, and they can get copies of the documents for a fee. And there's another, you can get pay-as-you-go, one is called Laredo and one is called Tapestry. We have 5 public terminals in our department. We have 2 out in the main area. We have 3 inside, so the general public can come in. We have to, there's a statute that says that we have to let the public in during our regular business hours. That's what we do. So it's kind of unique in a way that we're trying to do, we do our business and the public can come in. We do ask them to sign in so that we know if there's something missing, that we maybe can see who was in our office and who wasn't in our office. So once our documents for a small office, there's 4 of us right now. When we interview people, we say, we critique each other's work. And we don't want somebody who wants to, who gets offended very easily, because we have to try to get the product out 100%. Doesn't always work, but this is 100% accuracy, because this is people's history. It's how you can find their information, and it's, for forever. So somebody puts the information, somebody else has to verify it, so there's a process with it. So we work very tightly group that we work together. We have documents now in our, that are digitized back to 1970 in our software program. And there was a project that was done a couple years ago. And if the public wants to come in, we have our really old records, all digitized also. We still have the old books. If you want to come look at the books, please come. We have them all downstairs. So, and we have registered land, which is Torrance property. That's pretty much the same process that we do use. We record plats and corners. Corner certificates are recorded at no charge. And surveys we record, and they usually accompany a deed. Right now, at the present time, we are offering for free all the plats and the corners and the surveys are on our county website. And that was one of the things when there was a surveyors meeting, they were really interested in having the surveys online, and that was able to be done relatively quickly. We have a few restricted documents because we are in charge of military discharges also. So we record the military discharges as restricted documents. Only the veteran is able to get the military discharge. Okay, now vital records. We do birth certificates and death certificates. We are mandated by the state of Minnesota. There should be a department that can issue birth certificates and death certificates. We work closely with the death certificates with the funeral homes because they send in the requests and we process them for them, for the death certificates. And the public, general public, can come up and get the death certificates also. People have to have a tangible interest to get birth certificates and death certificates. They have to have ID. If they don't have ID, we unfortunately have had to turn people away. That's part of customer service. People get kind of angry at us, but we have to go by the state. If the state would find out that we did something that we weren't supposed to, they can take this away from us, for a week, for 2 weeks, or just say, you guys aren't following our guidelines and you can't do it anymore.
Excuse me, when you say they have to have ID,
Picture ID, a driver's license?
oh, so I have a picture ID, then I can get a birth certificate of anybody then, or?
Nope, just of yourself, or your children, or your spouse. You have to have a vested interest in the birth record, so you can be yourself, you can get your own, you can get your spouse's as long as it's not a confidential record, and you can get your children's, and grandparents can get the records. So it is not public information. There are some things that we have put on with the state. They can get just a little bit of information, but you cannot get a certified birth certificate of anybody that you don't have an interest for. And that's the same with death.
Parents.
Parents, yes, parents. Yeah. Spouses cannot get a birth certificate of their spouse if it's a confidential record. And unfortunately, Clay County has numerous confidential records because when they were transferred over to the state, there was one little part from the hospital that wasn't, in the 70s, it wasn't checked right. So.
Okay.
Okay, marriage applications. Anybody wishing to get married in Minnesota can come up to our office and they can fill out the application, and there's a fee. And the records for the applications that are processed in Clay County stay with Clay County. We are, at the present time, the 87 counties have collaborated to have a statewide marriage system called Minnesota Official Marriage Systems, or we call it MOMS. The website is www.moms.mn.gov, and you're able to go to that website to see if someone was married in Minnesota. So you can put their names in, and you can check all the counties, or if you think it's specifically Clay County, you can put it for Clay County. It's a really nice process. It's been going on for about 4 or 5 years, I think, now. And one of the things that the MOMS organization is working on now is a marriage application that we're working on it, hopefully by May, it will be kind of everyone will be using the same application form if they want to choose to. So the public would go in there, but they still have to come to our counter to pay for it, and we have to look at their IDs, and they have to meet the requirements. We also register ordinations. Anyone over the age of 18 can register their credentials, and that's for a fee. Notary filings. Anyone who's going to be doing business in Clay County, they would apply to the state of Minnesota first, get their certificate, and then we will register and certify it, so then they get their stamps. All of our fees that we charge are mandated by the state of Minnesota. There's a statute that covers all of our fees, whether it's a recording fee of $46, it's all broken down into how much we get, how much the state gets, how much we have a fund called compliance fund that you'll hear of, that if we meet our deadline to get the documents in and out within a certain time, we get to share these dollars with other departments. Our birth certificate and death certificates, they're all mandated by the state of Minnesota also.
I've got a question on marriage certificates. They have to go get a marriage certificate to get married.
They have to get a marriage license first.
A marriage license.
And then after they get married, then we issue the marriage certificate.
Who has to sign that? I mean, when they come back with it, can I sign one and say someone's married?
If you have ordination papers on record, you can.
They have to be on record here or what?
Someplace in the state of Minnesota, yeah.
Okay, so you check with whoever signs that.
It's the honor system, they're supposed to be.
Okay, I was just wondering some of these
Yeah, I know.
situations.
Yeah.
I mean, if I sign off and want to get married.
Yeah, you're signing off, you're making the statement that you were having ordination papers on file. Sometimes people
That's
have to
cool.
take responsibility, for, when we swear in the marriage applicants, and they swear that they're telling the truth. So, I mean.
I just found out that someone is a marriage can sign off on one.
Yeah.
This week I didn't know he could do that, but he's certified, I guess, and
If you're
I'm just
over the
wondering,
age of 18 almost.
where's there a record of that,
Yeah. If you're over the age of 18, anybody can become an ordained minister, pastor, whatever
Could
you
be a
want to call it.
sideline, okay.
Good side.
Get it online.
There you go, you can get online, there's numerous, Google that and you, okay,
There's always
so,
work to be done.
yes. We collect the funds, and then a monthly report is prepared, and we send the funds to the auditor treasurer with a breakdown, and they in turn send the monies to the state of Minnesota that gets the monies that they want. Right now, about 2/3 of the money that we collect for vitals goes to the state of Minnesota. Some of the, Kevin, I know you like numbers, so 2014 breakdowns. Real estate recordings, 10,829. Marriage applications, 657. Birth certificates, 1,470. Death certificates, 3,454. Notary applications, there were 169, and ordinations, there were 96.
So we had more debts than births.
Right, and usually what happens is, someone will pass away and you need so many death certificates. We might get an order for 12
You might get 12 for one person.
for one person, yeah. And we've actually gotten 30 for one person, so.
And a lot of times they need those because each
Insurance.
thing they're closing out for that individual, they require it, so. I
Yeah,
know
so that doesn't reflect births versus deaths.
No, it's
No.
just the amount, the
Number
people
of
that,
issues.
they lose their birth certificates, and if, nowadays, if you want to go renew your driver's license, you need probably your birth certificate.
Okay, I thought there was some statistics.
No, this is just the amount that we've
Very good.
processed in our,
Thank you.
in our department. And I think that's about it, unless you have some more questions.
Any questions for Diane?
Thank you, Diane.
Thanks for your
Thank
good
you.
work,
Good.
Diane.
Nice report, Diane.
Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, well, let's see, 9:30. Let's take a 5-minute break. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Next on the agenda, Human Resource Director Darren Brooks.
morning.
Good morning, Darren.
Gentlemen,
morning.
ladies, now I can say ladies.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. I had sent you an email that I would have to be leaving today at 9:30. However, that meeting has been postponed because of a funeral the Northern Lights director had to go to today. So
Oh.
I will be here.
Okay, good. Okay, Darren?
Okay, first thing I have on here is every 3 years, we have to submit what's called a pay equity report to the state. And our pay equity report is due on January 30th of this year. It's for 14, 13, and 12. The last report we submitted for was in 11. And so normally this will go just with a signature from the chair, but we wanted to bring this in front of the board just to kind of show you what this report says and why we have to do it. And it is a mandate by the state that we supply this information to the state as part of the pay equity report. Basically, what it asks us for is all of our positions that we have in the county, and then how many men are working in those positions, how many women are working in those positions, and then what the beginning salary and the ending salary are for those positions. And then we punch all of this information into their database or spreadsheet or whatever you have into the internet, and it kicks back whether we're in compliance or not for the pay equity. Meaning, are similar jobs that have similar points, are they being paid the same? And what this system does is it tells you if this is a male profession or a male position or a female position or both. So if it's all female, then that's annotated. If it's all male, or if it's both, if they have males and females working in the same position. And so once you punch all of this information in, for us, it's kind of a moot point in my opinion. A lot of the counties go off of grids, and each position has a pay grid, and a grade that they're on, and it has a minimum and a maximum, and it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man working in that position, you get the same amount of money. And so for counties, in my opinion, that are on the grids, this report is kind of a moot point. I think this Pay Equity Act was more for the private sector, where you could have some women coming in and being paid lower than the men that would be doing the exact same job. And so after I did all the report and punched in all the numbers, we are very much in compliance. I did show, this is kind of our, oh wait a minute, here. This is kind of what our compliance report would look like. And as you can see along the line, it's very much along the predicted pay. As a matter of fact, we're probably in better shape than we were when we did the last report, because remember when we did the last report, we still had a couple different grids out there. We had the, did I get enough?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got an extra one. I just thought Brian wanted one.
Oh, yeah, right. Because right now we have everybody on the county grid, and our last report, we still had a correctional officer grid, we still had a county attorney's grid, and so we've actually come more in line with our predicted pay than we were on the last report. So the report does not include elected officials. The other thing that this report requires is that we have to track all of our changes that we've made to the positions within the last 3 years. So I do that on a memo, letterhead that says, okay, we added a paralegal position in the last 3 years. Or when we did the restructure of the MIS-GIS, some of those names were changed. Any grade changes that we had throughout those 3 years, I annotate that as well. And so that's what the pay equity report does for us. And in order to submit this, we also have to pay $150, so, which is kind of unusual, but it's part of the plan, I guess. So, any questions on the pay equity report?
Mr. Chair, I move to submit the report.
I have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second the report.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Brian, you had something?
Well, just for clarification, when you talk about the positions, Darren, does it give different points for the different jobs? In other words, the nurses and public health is a female-dominated profession.
Correct.
The road workers are usually male-dominated profession.
Correct.
And does it assess that proper pointing
Yep.
is given for those?
Yep, absolutely, and that's how they get whether the jobs are the same or not.
Okay.
Because what we do is, when we did our comp study, every job got a point.
So that is accounted for?
Yep,
Okay.
and so what they're looking at is the job that has 350 points, and I'm just making
Yeah.
whatever the points up are, and that's a highway road crew or something, and a admin assistant is 350 points, are they getting
Right.
paid the same? And
Okay,
so
good.
that is all taken into effect once you punch all these numbers in, and then it spits out what your ratio is, so. I won't know, I'll get a certificate back when the chair signs the report, and then I have to input all that information. It's been inputted, and this is a preliminary report. Once I put all the information in, or basically submit it, then they will give us a certificate back saying that we're in compliance with the Pay Equity Act, so.
Okay, thanks.
Just one follow-up question. Now, we talked about, because we're on the grid system, there's a lesser chance of there being inequities. Discrimination or
Right,
whatever.
right.
However, is there ability to have somebody on the wrong line on the grid?
No, I don't think so, because it would be based on the points that
Okay.
position is given. So in our internal, we could say, well, we think that a paralegal should be the same as a public health nurse or whatever, but if we're giving paralegals less points than a public health nurse, but we're paying them the
So they
same,
have to
that
on
would
the
be a
line,
discrimination.
appropriate line based
Correct,
on the
correct.
points.
Yeah. So,
Okay, any other further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
By same sign, motion carries. Approval of personnel policy changes.
okay, this has some minor changes to the personnel policy, so we had two. One of them was discussed as part of the tobacco-free policy that we have, that was adopted, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And when we brought this to the PIC, one of the stipulations that we thought should be changed in the personnel policy is the ability for the employees to be able to leave campus during their 15-minute breaks. And so currently, the personnel policy says that they cannot leave during their 15-minute breaks. And so what I did is change that under, let's see, I forget which section it's under, Section 5, hours of work and attendance, under rest periods. You can see there the deletion of not allowing people to leave for those 15-minute breaks. So that would be the one change. I don't know if you want to vote on that
Yeah,
individually.
maybe we can
or-
approve them. Any questions about this policy change?
Well, Mr. Chairman, through the whole negotiation on the change in that policy and the smoking ban policy, that was part of the reason I think that we all agreed to vote the way we did. So I would move that we make the appropriate changes as brought forward for the off-campus issue.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on that matter?
Yeah, what do we mean by they can leave the campus? Can they get in the car and take off?
Yep,
In
if they
15
want. I mean, you really can't go too far in 15 minutes.
No, you can't.
But this also means that they can, if they want to go walking on their 15 minutes, before they were kind of restricted to the campus area. Now, if they wanted to walk down to motor vehicle and back or whatever, that would be during their 15 minutes, they could do that as well. I'm not sure how well it could be enforced, other than through the supervisors saying you have 15 minutes to, take a break or
Well,
whatever.
they have a 50-minute break, it's their responsibility to take it and be
Correct.
back wherever they go.
And if it starts leading into 25 and 30-minute breaks, then that's a disciplinary thing that the supervisors and managers
Right.
would have to deal with.
It could be something as simple as they had to park their vehicle off of the campus property. They wanted to go to their vehicle.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next, Darren.
Okay, next thing is under salary administration. Last year, Minnesota statute, they passed a law saying that an employer cannot limit a employee's discussion about their wages. For counties and public entities, I don't think this is as big a deal because all of our wages are public information anyway, and we've never restricted people from talking about their wages. We don't have anything in policy that says you can't discuss your wages with other people. But probably more in the private sector, that was an issue. And so through Minnesota Statute 181.172, they laid out this law that says that the employer cannot prohibit anybody from talking about their wages. So as part of that statute, it does say that anybody that has, let me find it here. The law specifically states that an employer who provides an employee handbook must include this notice to employees. And so it doesn't really impact us, but according to the law, we have to put this language to our personnel policy. I did get with Jenny and discuss this to see, do we have to put this in ours? And she said, yeah, it would probably be better safe than sorry. So the only place that I thought a good place for it would be in the salary administration policy statement, and that's where I put it. And basically it says that that an employer shall not require non-disclosure by an employee of their wages as a condition of employment. So we can't pre-employee say you can't talk about your wages. Require an employee to sign a waiver or other document which purports to deny an employee the right to discuss an employee's wages. So after they're hired, we can't have them sign a waiver saying I won't talk about my wages or anybody else's. Or we can't take any adverse action against an employee for disclosing an employee's own wages or discussing another employee's wages, which has been disclosed voluntarily. So this is just kind of bringing our personnel policy into compliance.
We've never done that.
No, we've never.
At any rate.
We've never done that.
Public employees pay information is available to anybody who wishes it.
It's all
so.
public information anyway, so.
So, any discussion on this with Darren?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, then we've got a closed session to discuss some attorney issues.
Move to close.
Have a motion to close.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. The last thing on our agenda for the day is committee reports. Frank, you got anything?
Sure. Tuesday after our meeting, I went to the University of Minnesota put on a crops update agenda, or a small grains update for the farmers. Looked to me, I mean, it was some very good information there for farmers, you know. And they had a morning session and an afternoon session, and they just gave some good information to farmers, and I see it was very well attended by farmers too. So it was just a good thing put on by the University of Minnesota. I mean, they had some, I mean, if you're going to go plant some crops, they gave you some good information on which way to go. You know, which crops are the good ones, you know, what works around here. And so it was, I really compliment the University of Minnesota for putting that thing on there. Let's see, then Thursday night I went to Hawley for the Comprehensive and Transportation Plan Study Review Committee, which I was selected to be on part of that review committee, and They just talked about a lot of stuff, FMCOG is gonna be, or MetroCog is gonna be helping them as far as their plans, as far as expanding. I mean, they're running out of places to put homes. I mean, they need to annex more area and stuff like that for their homes and stuff like that. They got a lot of situation. I mean, it's a growing community, and it's really taking off, and they gotta find places to put their people, you know. Their industrial area is really going great, and, you know, it's really a town that's really starting to look at, you know, what's our next plan here? The next plan is to make places for people to stay at out there, you know, find places for their, they got a lot of jobs out there, and they gotta find places for their employment. So it's gonna be an ongoing, there's around, I don't know, 7, 8 people on the committee, and we're just gonna look at different things as far as land expansion and stuff like that. Friday, of course, we're all at that intergovernment retreat, and just a great session again, I guess. And I know I heard people talking about this. Matt Lisa from Hornbachers that talk, you know, and it really, you know, when I heard him, listening to him talk, you know, he really stressed service and recognition of employees, and I felt, geez, are we doing that at the county, you know? Are we a service to our residents? You know, because that's who we're serving, you know, I mean, that's what Hornbacher serves, you know. They gotta serve their customers. Of course, every company, I guess, does that, but, you know, food industry really gotta put that product out there, you know, what's good to our company. And I really felt, how can we relate this to the county, you know? How can we be a service to our customers, you know? And the next great thing I thought he was talking about was recognition of employees, you know. Sometimes, I don't know, there's probably more internal stuff going on, but recognition of employees, we have it monthly, we give them a plaque and say thank you for your 10 years of service, or 15 or whatever, and then go thank you, goodbye, you know. And it's just, I hope there's more going on other than what's going on here, you know, that our supervisors do more than that and on the recognition of employees, you know. And I'm glad we're doing it, but I think that's a big thing too, is recognition of employees, you know, so. And of course, there's other, you know, very good panel discussion on legislative forum, you know. Last night, I went to, up to Twin Valley to a meeting with our final meeting with the Agassiz Recreational Trail. We officially disbanded the Joint Powers Board. I know we voted on paying, I think, $15,500, but we were holding that money, waiting to get something from Minnewa, saying that everything's been paid for, taken care of, there are no more claims. But I know they've already paid that Lundy and stuff like that, but there's still about $91.88 in the checking, $9,188 in the checking account. So that money will be given to Norman County, hopefully divided up amongst all 3 counties. So that should, I mean, as of last night, that board is done, and they're gonna write that check today and take care of that, so. I guess that's what I have.
Thanks, Frank. Wayne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Tuesday, January 20th, Local Advisory Council for Developmental Health, General Business, agency and organization reports from Clay County Social Services, Social Connection, which now has a new name called The Place for Hope, and from Lakeland Mental Health and Solutions, and FM Ambulance. And then we went over the Local Advisory Council Annual Survey. On Thursday, January 22nd, Family Healthcare, General Business, Patient Services Report, a Financial Report, and then the Development Report with emphasis on Giving Hearts Day, I believe is February 12th. Other business and reports related to family health care. Friday, January 23rd, Intergovernmental Retreat. Frank has gone over that quite well, and I would just have to echo Matt Lyseth's conversation regarding how we treat our employees, and it doesn't cost anything to say, hey, you've done a really nice job. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Denny?
Last Tuesday, I also was able to attend part of the session that the University of Minnesota Extension put on regarding the crop updates. I sat in on the soybean varieties presentation. It was very worthwhile, and they did a fabulous job. The Extension is a great tool for the area growers. On Wednesday, I attended the Historical and Cultural Society meeting at the Yumcomst General Business. We approved the prior year budget, just went over a basic general business, kind of an introduction to me since it was my first meeting with them. On Thursday, I went to Barnesville at the Eagle Cafe, and we had the Lakes and Prairies Community Action Partnership Board. We just went over some clarifications as Joe will be retiring this spring and will go into somewhat of a partnership with West Central just during the transition times. So the groups met to just kind of clarify some policies to make sure we're all on the same page. Friday, I also was able to attend the intergovernmental retreat, and I'll echo the praises to Matt Lyseth. He did a fabulous job of presenting and talked about the importance of giving back to the community. And one thing that he said was the people are our greatest asset, and we know that. Our citizens are, and our employees are, and they do a thing called the Quarter Century Club there, where they recognize people that have been with their company for 25 years. And I was able to pull up some information, or the ladies were for me at Central Administration. We have 41 employees that have been with Clay County for 25 years, and 2 of those employees have been here over 40 years. And that's just a really great thing that we have a lot of new people, but also people that have been here for quite a while. One thing that hasn't been said was the superintendents of the schools spoke on Friday and gave a pretty good presentation on what graduation percentages are, and just kind of how the face of students in Clay County is changing and what they're doing to meet the needs of all of our students. We have great people in place, and it was a privilege to be there. That ends my report.
Thank you. Kevin?
Okay. Thursday, we had a solid waste subcommittee meeting to go over some information regarding the proposed transfer station and MRF, and we talked over there were different options about if we were to build, what options would we do and what would we look at. And we did recommend one of the 6 options that were out there to finish the study that's being conducted. And that study should be completed within the next week or 2, I believe. One of the things, and then speaking of the intergovernmental retreat, I managed to get a few minutes to talk with Representative Marquardt, and I know part of our deal with this transfer station and MRF would be that to put legislation in, because oftentimes there is a match or there's a dollar amount that through the MPCA that will help construct these facilities. And Paul was very interested in what I was talking about, and he was hoping that we could put together something so they could get a bill in yet this year. So we'll be talking with Kirk a little bit about that more today after our meeting here. And then on Friday, the intergovernmental retreat, I could not be there the entire day, but I too I was just really impressed with Matt Lyseth, the president of Hornbachers, and his presentation to us on, and keeping and expanding our workforce, not only in Clay County, but the importance of it to this region. I don't think anybody could have done a better job than what he did that day. In what would be nice to hear, it's too bad all of the kids coming out of college couldn't hear a presentation like that, because and hopefully most of the businesses around here echo what Matt had to say. You talk about, we have employees ranging close to 25 years and some up to 40. I'm going to be leaving my position that I've held for 40 years coming up here in the next 2 months. And there's nothing better knowing that you're appreciated as much being an old guy on the job as you are being a young guy on the job. In other words, what Matt was saying is everybody is important. Everybody should be looked at as being important to the success of any company. Whether you're a part-time 16-year-old working as a cashier in Hornbachers, or you're a 60-year-old doing accounting work in a firm, all of those things are important, and everybody should be recognized for that importance and what it does to the community. And hopefully we can find ways through this metropolitan area to really encourage the kids that we have graduating from Concordia, from MSUM, from NDSU, from Min-State, to all consider staying here and making this their home. That's kind of the goal of all of this. So I was very impressed with the whole day's agenda was dealing with around the workforce, and I thought we pulled it off good. That's all I got.
Okay, I had also in solid waste. Kevin reported on that. Also attended the intergovernmental retreat. Some excellent presentations there. And the Hornbachers one I thought was interesting too. His position that a lot of people don't think in terms of a career when they think of grocery stores, but it's very interesting. That there's a lot of opportunities, in a lot of different areas and industries that people don't come to mind when people are thinking about a long-term career. But like Jenny said, there's lots of people that spend many years in their positions, and whether it's a grocery store or public employment. So a lot of good information there. I just want to remind the public we have 2 meetings this week, public meetings, open houses to look at the Heartland Trail for people to get information about that. The bike trail that we're hoping to have at some point in time run from Moorhead to Walker, Minnesota. And the first one is tonight in Hawley at the high school at 6 o'clock, and it goes till 8 o'clock, so people can stop by. That would be great. And the second one is Thursday night. I think the times are the same in Dilworth. And Frank, where was it
5
at?
to 7.
Community center.
It's where?
5 to 7.
5 to 7,
At
communities.
Dilworth, it's 6 to 8 at Hall, and 5 to 7.
Oh, 5 to 7 in Dilworth at the community center, so.
I will say 2 other things. The retirement party for Kathy Richards at the Extension is today from 3:30 to 5. And then also Karen Carlsrud at the Soil and Water is retiring, and her party is Thursday from 2 to 4. And just echo appreciation to them for their service.
Okay, Brian, you have anything?
No, Mr. Chair, took the week off. Thanks. Just kidding, just kidding.
Figures.
I think Matt Lyseth is probably the best down-to-earth motivation speaker I've ever heard, and I've heard tons of them. But his common sense and his identity to you really hit a spot with me. Like I said, probably the best. I sat there for an hour just listening to him, just questions, and just was really impressed. One thing that we talked about, and I know Commissioner Gross was at this training, this half a day of management training that we had attended in December with Dave, can't remember his last name, the big bald guy he goes by on his promotional process. But last week in the Central Administration Management meeting, Mark Sloan brought this up, and I asked him to bring it up at the full management team meeting, and it was something that Dave said at that training. He said he's got a policy with his family when they're out and about that if you see litter, you own it. And we started talking about that a little bit, and Mark and I have had a discussion about this, and I've asked him to bring it up as a suggestion from the Strive, because now Strive is a component of the complete management team. But I said, let's see where this can run. in our entire county government. I thought I'd throw it out to you guys to let you know that we're going to discuss this concept. If you see it, you own it. In other words, county employees have ownership here. We don't care if it's a piece of litter, if it's an improper policy that's going on, or what it is. If you see it, you have an obligation to bring it to someone's attention or to do something about it. And like I said, we're going to brainstorm on this topic, and I think it fits in with what you guys just hit on. Ownership, employee recognition, how do we do a better job of keeping our people motivated? And that's the thing, you know, when you have an accountant for 61 years, that's not 60, it's 61. I just thought I'd point that out, because somebody said 60 and it's really 61, so.
I wasn't trying to make it personal.
He used to say he started when he was 1.
Anyway, I think that's really, really important that at every age group and longevity that we do things to excite the employee and keep them motivated, keep them on a buy-in. And we're really going to toss that around, and I'll let you know, keep you informed as to where it goes. I hope we're on to something that can really work, and it's just an idea we picked up on somebody else. You remember that, Commissioner Gross? Do you remember that when he said that? That kind of was really kind of important. Anyway, I'll ramble on here. I met with the sheriff's office on some issues with the dog thing and things, so moving along on that. I attended 2 separate webinars on MCIT updates on liability insurance and property insurance. Had a couple of evaluations to do. Solid waste meeting that's been talked about plenty. The intergovernmental retreat I attended. New hire orientation yesterday. A couple issues on personnel matters with Darren. Had some conversations with Steve. We're going to have a discussion right after this meeting on juvenile housing. It's really something how that business has boomed, and I think it's partially because of the great job that our people are doing over in the juvenile detention and the programs that they've put in place that now we're full. So I think that'll be a good discussion. Commissioner Campbell brought this up. We do have a meeting with some legislators, just a couple of us earlier in the morning on Saturday, the 14th, but he also brought up the fact, and I visited with your chair, Chairman Whalen, on this, but would you be interested in a meeting with your legislators then on the morning of February 14th? That would be about 10:30 in the morning, then we'd meet with the full board. And the reason why we kind of need to know that is we need to publicize it, and because it's going to be it'll be a quorum, you guys, so.
You know, we have a female commissioner now because she said it's Valentine's Day. None of
It's
the
President's
men,
Day weekend, really.
None of the men actually remembered it was Valentine's Day, so that.
Oh, it's Valentine's Day, actually.
Mhm. And I would love to be with you all.
So your chair is, so we should pursue that and line that up then? 9 o'clock. And that would be right here at the courthouse. And we were kind of thinking we would just then continue on and keep it all here. I know you suggested the frying pan or something like that. And we could, no, not for the morning one, or not for the early one. And then,
Well, let's go to the frying pan for the county one.
do that for the county one? Okay.
That fine with everybody?
That sound all right?
You gonna be there, Jenny?
Sure.
Kevin's
You're gonna be
buying,
there.
so.
Okay, very
Is it
good.
10:30?
That would be 10:30, yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, gotta make arrangement, frying pan, though, make sure they're gonna,
Yeah, that's what we have to do, yeah. Mhm.
you're talking, yeah, okay. And we're talking more at frying pan.
Yes. Yeah, not the fire one.
No.
Have you checked with the legislators, are they available yet for the whole line?
One of them I have, I thought I would talk to, in fact, I talked to Paul, called me this morning, or yesterday.
What's your alternate date if that doesn't work?
Just confirm it all.
21st?
Well, they would have to come back.
They're here.
They're here anyway, so that should work out for
They're
them.
back
I assume,
on the
so,
weekend.
yeah, so they're gonna, yeah. So.
It's just a matter of whether Ben and
Right.
like to have a different, anything else.
And we want to get to them as soon as possible, so that they don't schedule something else.
I'm not sure, if I may, I'm not sure of the date, but I think it could be that Saturday. If it is that Saturday, those two legislators would have a meeting in Ward State for the Northern Lights Library Network. Maybe it's the next week. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, they have confirmed for the morning meeting at 9 o'clock, so we're good for that one. So we could probably tighten things up a little bit too if we had to. We're going to get it all done. Okay, and then spend some time on that planning and zoning discussion that you guys had this morning. I really want to thank Vicki for putting that information together. That was all public information to send out, but it really, really painted a clear picture. So, on February 6th, that's a Friday, at 3:10 in the afternoon. I don't know if this will be an open meeting for the Diversion Authority. The general will be in there for a meeting. I don't know if you two, this is just kind of back and forth the last day or so. So
When is that?
it's on February 6th, Friday afternoon at 3:10 in the afternoon, Fargo City Hall.
Why couldn't he be there the day before for the Diversion Authority meeting?
Who's the general?
Oh, yeah, that's right, I forgot he's a general.
Did you miss his title?
Good answer.
Good, Jenny. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my report.
Vicki, anything for us? No? We're adjourned.
Very good.